everybody, it's Romania Black. This is definitely warranted. We are on episode 11 of season 4, part 1 of Attack on Titan. It's been a while since I've had a wine night with Attack on Titan, but you know what? There's a blizzard outside. I'm snowed in, and I feel like I'm going crazy because I rewatched episodes 9 and 10 today, and episode 9, I stand by it. I feel like Isayama had episode 9 there right after episode 8 to make you as the audience feel like you figured it out. Like everything, the puzzle pieces were all in place. There's still some questions that needed answering, but I felt really good about it. And then episode 10 came along and Isayama was like, joke's on you, psych. And I'm like, huh, because now there's more questions. Isayama proves a point, and I wrote in my notes here that he refuses to give us the full picture of the story. Intentionally. He wants us to slowly piece it together. But I think Isayama likes playing this game where he makes you think that you got it, and then he gives you a little piece of information, and you're like, well, shit, I don't have it. And so it's been that back and forth. And so he's not giving us the full picture of the story. There's still that year. We've gotten 2 years back, and we saw Eren was drastically different than he is now. But we don't have that what happened a year ago. And we still don't have that information yet. Like, what changed between 2 years ago and now? Something big happened. What was it? And we don't know. So I'm going to keep, obviously no spoilers, but I'm just going to keep my eyes peeled and be like, okay, what am I missing? Because I feel like there's intentional chunks of the story that Isayama's not showing us yet because it's not time to reveal it. So it's like, it's funny, you know, we all hyped up the basement and we thought that was going to be the end all, be all reveal, and no, not at all. So, noting some things from episode 10, I've got some notes, not nearly as many as last time. Episode 8 just aired on Patreon, and episode 6 on YouTube. And so, I'm sure by the time I get to episode 12, episode 7 and episode 9 will have aired, so I'll probably have more comments about that. So I'm going to wait till after those episodes air before I record episode 12. I'm just going to wait on those to see. But, Eren's whole deal is that he's been powerless this entire series. And as I noted last episode, he's not quite powerless anymore. Or he doesn't think that he is. He thinks he has all this power. He's like, look at what I have. I can become the Warhammer Titan. I can do pretty much anything with my hardening ability. I have the Founding Titan. So I've got you parody by the balls. I also have the Attack Titan. So Eren's got these 3 Titans, which makes me wonder if that's maybe all Eren wanted. If Eren just wanted the Warhammer Titan so he could escape. If maybe he's not wanting to collect the other Titans, he just wanted the Warhammer one because it was the biggest threat to him. And that's why he needed to get it out of the way. And also because we said back in episode 19 in Bite of season 1 that the whole thing was that Eren was a presence that couldn't be caged. He was a spirit that couldn't be tamed no matter what cage you put him in. Well, now as he told Hange, he can no longer be caged with the power that he has. So that's terrifying. That's really terrifying. He's just biding his time, waiting to escape for whatever reason we don't know yet. I also want to note that Niccolo just showed up. Like, the Grease guy was not expecting him. He just showed up in the cellar with the mysterious bottle of wine. That's suspicious. I don't like that. But the main thing is that in the present timeline, Eren is not communicating with Armin and Mikasa and the others. He's distanced himself again from everybody else. Back in episode 9, I noted that 3 years ago, when Eren seems like he's stressed or is dealing with something that he doesn't know, is uncomfortable with, he withdraws into himself and he doesn't outwardly communicate with others. When he's calm and feels comfortable, then he does communicate with others. So you had in episode 9, Eren 3 years ago that was faced with this like horrific revelation, and he had just kind of drawn into himself and he was trying to rationalize and reason it out, and it withdrew him from everybody. And then a year later, he had, found things seemed like they were better. He had this plan with Zeke that they were going to form. Things were on the up and up. And so he was more open about talking about how he has this connection with his friends and he cares about them. He cares about Historia. And now we cut to 2 years later and he's even further withdrawn, like even more so than episode 9. So I feel like something has happened to make him really uncomfortable. And he doesn't feel like he has any choice anymore. And it's like, what you do. And it's affecting his trust with others. This being withdrawn and not communicating with them is affecting that trust, right? If you don't have that communication, you're not going to build trust that way, right? Mikasa trusts Eren, as we've seen in the last episode. Mikasa trusts him still. And she just says that Eren cares too much. And that may be the case. Eren may care too much. and it's driving him crazy that he isn't able to save everyone. And Sasha's death just exacerbates that, where he's like, I'm still powerless, right? So there's that. But then Armin is the most scary in all of this, because Armin has always had such a trust in Eren. And in the last episode, some of you described it. Sacha Purvis, you're one of them. I'm going to talk about y'all in the comments. But Armin, he wants to have faith. And he wants to still believe that peace is a possibility. But Eren is flying in the face of everything that Armin is working towards. And my fear is that Armin's like, I want to have faith in you, Eren. I want to keep loving you and being your best friend. But if you keep on doing this, when is the breaking point? And I don't want Armin to get to the breaking point. That's the problem. And so there's this issue of trust. I went back and watched episode 4 of season 3 the other day because I was like, yeah, I mentioned trust in episode 9. I'll go back and rewatch it. I'm like, are they planning a coup from inside? Is Eren planning a coup from inside with the Marleyans and the anti-Marley volunteers? Because right now the volunteers have been held up by Pixis and them. They've got them at gunpoint and they're detaining them. And the anti-Marleyan volunteers is exactly like the Restorationists. It's right up Eren's alley if he's on board with that mentality. So is Eren going to bust them out? Is Niccolo involved in this? I don't know. It just made me think that whole episode of Trust. I talked, a few episodes ago about how it was like a trial run of now, and I'm like, maybe it is. If we're having another coup, I don't know. But okay, before I get too far in, I do have some comments going before we start episode 11. Dear God. But I want to make a comment note here. A lot of you have talked about Armin from episode 6 grabbing Eren's hand. Like a lot of you have talked about in episode 6 and episode 8, specifically episode 8, Armin grabbing Eren's hand. And there's been 4 times that it's happened in every season. It's happened once every season so far. And the circumstance and the reaction between Armin and Eren has been different each time. In season 1, you had Eren reaching for Armin to pull him out of Santa Claus Titan and to save him. It was Eren offering Armin his hand to save him and then sacrificing himself to save Armin. That was season 1 in episode 5. In season 2, it was a little thing. It was in Warrior in episode 6 of season 2, but Eren helped Armin up to the top of the wall. Kind of maybe a metaphor of Eren helping Armin to become the Colossal Titan later. I don't know. But then in season 3, episode 8, that's probably the biggest contrast to this current one that we saw in episode 8 of season 4. Like, season 3, episode 8, you had Armin helping Eren up, and he was like, Eren! And he was so happy, and they were so happy to see each other, and there was that love and camaraderie. And then you cut to one season later, in episode 8 of season 4, and the vibe is totally different. Armin is disappointed, he's sad, he's upset with Eren. And honestly, him and Mika said being disappointed with Eren is almost worse than them being angry. It's like when you have a parent and the parent's like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. And it hurts that much more. It's like, I feel like that's it, right? So I like that we have had in each season a moment of Eren and Armin pulling each other up, but with a different connotation. Mary Axo brought up this question of, it's going to come down to, in Mary's words, she feels that it comes down to who has the most information and who can outplay the enemy, whatever the enemy is at this point, depending on what side you're on. So yeah, it really comes down to who has the most information. And I think that ties back to Hange and Eren. Hange commenting in the last episode that Eren, sat up with her all night at that point and listened to her tell stories. And it's because Eren didn't have any information. But now Eren believes he has all the information he needs, so he doesn't need Hange anymore. And I'm like, I hate it. I know Hanji's fishing for information for him, but still, his outburst and yelling at her and grabbing her was something. A lot of you said that the Warhammer's last words were literally, do you have any last words? I didn't realize that in the reaction. That's kind of hilarious that was Lara's last words was, do you have any last words? Usurper Eren Yeager? Yikes. But I'm glad y'all pointed that out. Baku noted that the Panzer unit with Peak were all Marleyans. None of them had on the emblem. None of them had on the sleeve, the band across them, that they were all Marleyans that had developed this relationship with Peak. And I thought it was a really cool connection to how the Marleyans developed this relationship with Peak. And like we saw in episode 9 and for some of episode 10, the volunteers developed a relationship with the people of Paradis. So it's like a parallel there. I thought that was really cool. And now we have this issue of trust and distrust. Ugh. AJN noted that they said that season 4 part 1 is philosophically challenged. Yes, very much so. I feel like that's the perfect label to define this whole part so far. Philosophically challenged. There has been so many comments of people from different ideas about what's right, what's wrong, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. And I think that's Isayama's intent. He's like, isn't this complicated? Isn't real life complex? And I'm like, I think that's intentional, but AJN, that was the perfect description for this season so far. Philosophically challenging. Yes. Some dude noted that Eren's head was down during episode 8 when he was, had the moment where he laughed and he grimaced. So there was no way for Jean and Connie to notice that Eren had a grimace despite the laugh. Mika says technically the only one who's seen Eren break down and cry and laugh at the same time, and she knows that means he's grieving. So I was waiting last episode for her to say something about that, but maybe she overlooked it. I don't know. But I think it's important to note that no one else really saw that Eren wasn't just laughing about Sasha's death. He was actually really bitter and torn up about it, but no one noticed it. So it's, again, communication. It's important. It's not happening in this season, and I hate it. So also, Levi stuck with the anti-Titan swords during episodes 6 through 8. He wasn't using the anti-personnel gear. He was using the anti-Titan swords. And I think that speaks a lot for Levi's character and where he's at. He doesn't want to hurt Marleyans or Eldians. He just wants to destroy Titans. That's been his goal the whole time. So I can't fault Levi for that, right? I think Levi sticking to his guns is interesting and speaks a lot for his character. Christopher Peterson noted that it should be noted the size of Marley's military, it kind of makes Eren and Willie's this whole spectacle, it kind of brings it into perspective because like Yelena said in episode 9, Marley has 1 million soldiers in their military. 1 million. Lots of ships. Destroying the one port, yeah, it bought them some time, but it wasn't a huge blow to Marley, right? And losing those thousands of soldiers, yeah, that was a blow, but as William McGath noted, they were wanting to clean out the brass. They wanted to replace them with new people, so they wanted them gone. So it's not, the way that Christopher described it, yeah, it doesn't seem as big of a impact to Marley as you would think going into episodes 6 through 8. You think, oh, this is a big deal to Marley. Military-wise, it's not. The more important thing is that it's alerted the rest of the world to Paradis and how dangerous they are, and now it's going to rally all of the world against Paradis. So it seems like this whole operation, and plus it killed civilians and other people too, and got everybody against Paradis. So it seems like it did more harm than good. So I'm still wondering, why'd you do it, Eren? There's stuff we're not knowing yet, and it's driving me crazy, and I feel like I'll find it out eventually. I'll just wallow in insanity until that happens. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to call it out. And then, he said he had no choice. But again, lots of things getting called into question. And then Sasha Purvis notes that Mikasa and Armin, they love Eren. And they're like, the way Sasha described it is like when you have that one friend that keeps making bad decisions, but you love them, so you keep supporting them, but you're like, you need to stop. That's how Mikasa and Armin are. And the question is Armin at a breaking point? I don't know. And then I wanted to make some comments just on things that I noticed upon rewatch. Eren, I thought this was really interesting. The idea that he actually influenced Gabi and Falco in their actions against Sasha and John when you think about it. Because Eren has influenced Falco in having that talk with Reiner, and Eren has influenced Gabi by having that attack at the internment zone, and Gabi and Falco are coming at their understandings of Eren from slightly different perspectives. And so it's interesting to note that both Sasha and Jean spared Gabi and Falco in the moment. For Sasha, Gabi retaliated and only saw Eren as this violent figure, and so she retaliated with violence and killed Sasha. Falco saw Eren in a slightly different light, so even though he didn't directly not attack Jean, but he kept Gabi from shooting Jean and saved him inadvertently. So I think that that's an interesting thing, how Eren has affected both of them in slightly different ways. I think that's interesting. Niall looks so much older in these episodes. Last episode, I was like, damn, Niall looks old. And I thought about it rewatching the episode today. I'm like, well, he's lost Erwin. He lost one of his best friends. And yeah, so maybe he is affected by it. And I wondered with his comment about Historia and him saying that, you know, she can pick whichever partner she wants. I wondered if that tied back in any way to him getting married to Maria and him and Erwin, you know, liking the same woman, but Niall ending up with her. Maybe she chose Niall. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. And then Yelena is to Zeke what Flock is to Eren, I feel. Rewatching these episodes and hearing Yelena talk about viewing Zeke as a god, someone who gives hope to the powerless. I'm like, that's exactly what Eren has become for Flock. Back in episode 6 through 8, is that Eren has become a symbol of Flock to give hope to the powerless. Flock has felt powerless this entire series. And so Eren being able to give him hope that, yeah, they can fight back against the Marleyans. Of course he would. Now, do I think that Flock worships Eren like Yelena worships Zeke? No. But I think that they view what Eren and Zeke represent in the same way. And so yeah, that's where I'm at. I do want to say that I went totally baby daddy theory last episode with Eren and Historia, and I know it's not aired yet, but I'm just waiting for everybody in the comments to be like, Eren's not the father, and I'm like, let me theorize. Let me have this. So I know that Eren's probably not the dad. He's probably not. It's probably Farmhand Coon or whatever his face is. The fact that we don't even see his face, I'm like, Isayama, what is this nonsense? No. I wonder if Eren is not the father. Did Eren want to be the father? That's the thing that gets me. I'm like, because Eren clearly has a thing for Historia. And the last episode kind of shows it to me. It kind of shows me that Hange thinks the same thing. She's thinking the same lines. And so I'm like, okay, did Eren... And Eren got really mad when it was suggested that Historia would have sex with someone just to have kids and further the line. And Eren's like, it's not me. Why are we using Historia? I don't think that that's necessarily the case of him being like, it's not me. But I think that Eren does like Historia, and maybe he wanted to be the one to get with Historia eventually, but not under those circumstances. So I don't know. There's a huge part of me that's like, that child is Eren's, but then there's a part of me that's like, you're just doing conspiracy theory and you just want it to be Eren's. And I'm like, true, but I'm sure all of you will be like, ha ha ha, Romania, what a funny theory. And I'll be like, let me theorize. Let me have one tinfoil hat theory. I predicted Zeke right. Let me have this with Eren as baby daddy. But, oh God, I at least want to see his face. If we don't see Farmhand Coon's face, I'm going to be shocked. But anyway, so yeah, I poured myself a glass of wine. I was like, this is probably needed, but I've spent a good 20 minutes on this intro. Let's dive in, shall we? So, episode 11, y'all. I've said all along that season 4, I was like, oh, I'm not ready for season 4. Episode 10 was the first time that I felt I'm not ready. So it was the first time I questioned myself after the discussion was over. I was like, did I sign up for more than I could chew? Maybe. Might be. Y'all will get to watch me descend into madness, so it's fine. It's perfectly fine. But all right, let's do this proper, shall we? We are going to start episode 11 of Attack on Titan season 4, and we're going to start that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's see what happens. I feel like it's one of those episodes that when I rewatch it later, there's going to be little bits and pieces that are going to stand out even more. Because this episode was strange. We come off of 2 really crazy episodes, 9 and 10. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I thought we would get more into the past. Like, because we did 3 years ago and then 2 years ago. And then we had the hint that something 10 months ago happened or started to happen. So I feel like this episode, in hindsight, is going to be one of those episodes I want to come back and rewatch but right before I do the recap. Like, I feel like it felt very much like episode 4. Episode 4, from one hand to another in this season, was one that at the time I was like, what a strange setup episode. And then the next couple of episodes happened and I was like, oh. And so I feel like this is exactly the same. Deceiver. This episode is deceptive. It seems like it's just a nonchalant episode. What a nice little story about Gabi and Falco learning something from the girl that Sasha saved. But it's more than that. There's other things. There's little things being set up that I'm like, like, that's how I feel. And I was like, okay, Whiteboard Coon needs to come out because we need to outline some things. we need to outline some things. So I'm going to have up in the run, we didn't see Eren at all this episode, which is suspicious. Again, you build it up with Eren and Zeke last episode. You build that all up, show, and then you give us an episode where they're not involved at all, except in name and mention. That seems odd, doesn't it? But let's talk about the timeline. So I'm going to start up here and just say 2 years ago. That seems where we need to go from. We're going to go from 2 years ago. The timeline is getting smaller, right? The timeline is getting smaller. So we're going to go 2 years ago, and then it mentions 10 months ago. And I'm actually going to put that above rather than below, right? So we're going to do 10 months ago. Okay. And then we're going to tie to the present time. All right. And then as we got in this, I'm sad that that's the only post-credit scene, that was the last one. Y'all said it was just episode 4 and 11. I'm like, man, that sucks. I was really hoping that episode 16, when we got to the end, would have a post-credit, but apparently not. It's just episode 11 and this one, which it's a fitting post-credit scene because it's just sandwiched in there just to give you a little bit of plot thing and tell you what the Marleyans are doing. So apparently 6 months from now, okay, 6 months from now is when let's go ahead and outline this global alliance. Okay? The global alliance is going to attack Paradis. Like, how fitting. You just organized it and just got it ready to go. Everything's all good to go. And according to Reiner, that's what Zeke is banking on, that they got 6 months. A lot can happen in 6 months, right? So we're going to have a little jot down here of what's going to happen in between there. So Reiner and Porco and Peak and Colt. I don't like that Colt's going with them. He's probably going to die. Like, I feel like that's going to happen. Colt's going to die. They're planning a surprise attack. Wow. It's kind of like, it's like when they went to Shiganshina 9 years ago. Only it was Reiner and Marcel and Annie and Bertolt. It's the same crew. Just different ones, right? And they're going to surprise attack in between the 6 months and now to get back Gabi and Falco. So they want Gabi and Falco back. Here's the thing. Peak and Porco want to attack Paradis and go get Zeke. I'm sure that that's their big agenda. I don't think Reiner and Colt care so much for Zeke as they care for Gabi and Falco. They're more interested in getting Gabi and Falco out of there than they are finding Zeke, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so not only is that going to be happening in the meantime, but within 6 months, Historia looks pretty far along. So Historia is going to have this baby. Yeah, she's going to have the baby within those 6 months. So by that point, and I'm assuming that Eren and co. is going to want the rumbling to happen before the alliance, before the 6 months. So yeah, there's a lot that can happen between now and 6 months. Kind of like what Reiner was saying. He's like, we can't afford to wait that long. And Magath's like, that's the timeline we're given, you know? It's insane that there's such an organization to war, right? When you're about to go commit genocide, there's an organization to it. We have to follow procedure. And they're like telling Magath, no, that's not going to work. And Reiner does bring up a good point. Zeke probably planned on that, but Zeke could have also planned on Reiner. Here's the thing. Eren spared Reiner back in episode 8, and I was commenting about how it was odd that Eren just let Reiner go, right? And a lot of you said that the Japanese translation, the English subtitles don't quite match the actual Japanese translation, and that when it's translated from its original version, that it actually showed that Eren didn't think Reiner had any energy left. And plus, there's the fact that the airship was coming to pick them up, so they were on a time crunch. There was a limited window of time. It makes sense why Eren spared them. But, yeah, you may go do this surprise attack on Paradis, but it could also backfire and blow up in your face, and y'all get either captured or killed before the global alliance happens, and then, you know, then Marley's even more screwed. So it's a gamble. Doing this whole surprise attack, it's not worked well the last 2 times you did it. So you're going to go for 3 for 3, third time's a charm, see how that goes. And plus they don't have Zeke. Zeke's their strategist. So I'm assuming they're going to be relying on Reiner to strategize. So that's going to be interesting. But yeah, so we have that in that little window. In that little window of time, you have what's planning on going down before this global alliance happens, right? Okay. Meanwhile, in the present time, Eren is in prison. We're gonna knock that in here, right? Eren is in prison, and Historia's out in the sticks. She is not near anybody, it seems. And Gabi and Falco are with the blouses. Which, that is the craziest thing. The craziest thing. The irony of all ironies. I thought when Gabi and Falco first showed up and I saw horses in the fence, I thought they were at Historia. And I was like, oh God, that's going to be a crazy. They're at the Queen, right? They're with the Queen of Eldia. And nope, they're at the Blouse family, which in hindsight, this story makes it gets so interesting. Okay. And then we'll talk about 10 months ago. And then 2 years ago, if we go back to 2 years ago, we had Levi's squad working on the railroad, right? They're working on the railroad, which we just learned was going to Trost. So, and we find out that the Trost Railroad 10 months ago was completed, right? The Trost Railroad, the old Reading Railroad. All right, so 10 months ago means that it would have been like a year and 2 months, right? Right? So 1 year and 2 months passed. Behold that, but that Tim. Okay. All right. So I want to put that timeline up there because I feel like as this episode goes on, we're going to get more. It's going to get more complicated. The timeline is shrinking. We're narrowing back down to the present, right? It's kind of like last season when we had the basement. We were slowly getting closer, right? Getting closer and then going from there. So let's dive into this episode proper now that we've established that. Okay. Like I said, when I first started this episode, I thought it was a baby crying. And I was like, are we going to like some baby? Like, I swear I don't have baby fever. It's just I want to know about this baby. Because here's the thing, too. And again, this is going back to last episode. Another part of me that's thinking that this baby is important, right? It's important for a number of reasons. It's the heir of Eldia. It's the queen's child. It's the only, other than Zeke, it's the only descendant of royalty left. So it's important. And I'm like, its dad's just farmhand coon? Okay. But here's the thing. Isayama has made a point in this series that anytime there is a baby involved, and it's a sign of like the creation of life, it goes against like the destructive qualities of the show. The show is very much about destruction, and there's lots of death and destruction throughout the show. But like the creation of life, like giving birth to a literal being, is something that Isayama has always drawn in this series as being somewhat sacred. You had in the season 3 opener, or in season 2, you had the baby, the old man and the baby's hand clutching, like passing from one generation to the next. You had in the scene in episode 6, or episode 5, where Willie's talking about the vow to renounce war, and you had Carl Fritz holding the tiny baby, and it was all angelic. You have that. You have, some of you commented about being a slave to something, and it not necessarily being a bad thing because you tie back to Kutchel holding Levi, her child, and that's considered a very important thing. I mean, Isayama showed us what Kutchel looked like. He gave Levi's mom a name and face, and you're not going to show us Historia's baby daddy? Suspicious. But my point is that anytime a baby has been shown, whether it was Kutchel holding baby Levi, whether it was Carla holding Eren, whether it was Dinah holding Zeke, whether it was the baby and the dad in the opening or the grandpa in the opening, whatever the case may be, anytime a baby has been shown being born or being there, it's given this like reverent light and significance because it's life, the creation of life in the face of destruction. And I don't know, it just seems so random to just have some farmhand be the father of Historia's child, unless that's the point. Unless the point is that it's just some guy that's not special in any way. But I'm like, is there... It's weird. It's weird, and it's in the back of my head, and I'm going to be thinking about it the rest of this season. So there is that. But getting back into the episode here, God, Gabi acting like she was having a seizure. Like, And Falco was in on it. So let's establish that Falco and Gabi, they did intend to break. He was helping her break out, right? Or maybe not. Maybe Falco didn't know what was happening. I want to say that Falco knew what was going on, but he didn't expect her to get as violent as she did. Like, I'm going to put Gabi and Falco over here. So we got Gabi, right? We got Gabi, old Gabi Braun, all right? And we have Falco. I'm going to put that over there. And then we have Falco. Okay. There are several key players in this story, in this episode, that I want to make note of. And Gabi and Falco are obviously two of the major ones. But yeah, this guy, again, this show has something against even this guy with the slightest bit of chub. He's going to die in this series. And I was like, why did that? She had like a sleeve. And I wondered why that hurt him so much. But there was literally a board inside the sleeve. So yeah, a big chunk of wood. And she just hauled off and killed him. Like, just, bashed his head in. Girl. And yeah, that's overkill indeed. Yeah. Oh, God. Gabi goes through a trip, and there's the prison. Yeah, it's an old rundown prison. It just looks overgrown and everything. It's weird. So they're in Wall Rose, near Wall Maria. They're near Wall Maria right now, right? They're near Shiganshina, honestly, because we established that where Connie and Sasha are from, they're at the bottom near Wall Maria, right? Or no, they're near Wall Rose. They're near Wall Rose because back in season 2, that's when they were going to check out Wall Rose and make sure there wasn't a hole in it. So they are near Wall Rose. Okay. But that prison looks pretty decrepit. It looks a little run down. Definitely not maximum security because they're kids. They didn't think they needed maximum security. Joke's on you. So yeah, Falco he just followed her because he felt he needs to. And Gabi's like, we'll be killed if we stay. And that we have to go. And Falco brings up, he's like, that guy was worried about you. Falco is bound and determined to show Gabi that these people aren't devils. Falco seems bound and determined to show Gabi that these people are kind of just like us. Again, going back to the mentality of how Eren has affected Falco. Eren's speech with Reiner, his whole discussion with Reiner has deeply affected Falco. And now Falco's thinking like, okay, and to be honest, I say deeply affected. We know from episode 1 that Falco has always kind of been against the grain. He's kind of had this thought about ending war and being free from the start. Eren's just given fuel to the fire. And likewise, Gabi has been indoctrinated since a young age to believe that all the Eldians on Paradis are devils and that they deserve to die for their sins. And Eren's attack on the internment zone has just fueled the fire in her beliefs. So you have, in the weirdest of ways, that Eren has fueled both of their ideologies, right? He has basically stoked the fire and given them all the more reason to believe the things that they do, which is interesting that Eren did that for both of them. But yeah, Falco's like, he was worried about you, and you chucked a log at his head and killed him. And then Gabi says, can you trust these devils? I can't even trust Zeke anymore, or anyone else. So Gabi Gabi doesn't think she can trust anyone. Not just Zeke, not just Falco. She can't trust anyone. She thinks that she's alone and that there's nothing that she can do. And Falco is trying to be like, no, that's not the case. And then we have Reiner waking up and Mappa, thank you. I'm a simple woman. I don't ask for much fan service. I know this is not the series to ask for fan service. And maybe this whole Eren baby daddy theory is because I want some sliver of romance in this husk, in this loveless series. I want some kind of romance, but Mappa, y'all wouldn't give me shirtless poker daddy. That's staying in. You wouldn't give me shirtless Erwin. You wouldn't give me shirtless Levi. It took you long enough, but you finally gave me shirtless Reiner. I'll take it. You gave me shirtless Eren too, but I've seen Eren since he was a baby. It's still weird to me. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that, but you gave me shirtless Reiner. I'm okay with that. He's a beefy man, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, he's there. And so we have Reiner with Porco and Peak. And Porco is like already on the drink. Like he's already sipping down the champagne. Like he's clearly traumatized by all of this. And I like that Reiner's just looking at them like, why didn't you guys leave me a shirt? Like Reiner's like, you couldn't leave me a shirt. Not that I'm complaining. Not that I'm complaining, but Reiner's like, y'all are dressed and y'all are sitting here watching me naked in bed. It's fine. I'm just curious about it. But yeah, Porco and Pete asking if he's having nightmares. And so then, yeah, okay, so they're in a hospital room. That is not Colt. I wonder if that was Colt in the background, but it's just an injured soldier. So it's not them. But he's like, I wish this was all a dream, but it's not. Right? And then he said, I heard Gabi and Falco's voices. Where are they? And then we cut to the opening. So that the bed that Peak was sitting on was empty. And so I wonder if maybe Porco had been on that bed and then he healed up. And then but Porco's clearly been affected by all this. Obviously, he's responsible for the War Titan getting eaten, whether he likes it or not. So there's that. But yeah, Reiner, thinking back to Gabi and Falco, is referring to hearing their voices back in episode 7. So I'm like, okay, we get tied back. It's just funny, it ties back to them running through the forest yelling now, and then it cuts to him. But yeah, so Reiner's awake, and they've got a game plan to go and do the surprise attack on Paradis. Nothing will go wrong there. We've not learned the last 2 times we've tried it that that's a bad idea, but we've learned since then, so maybe things will be fine. Maybe things will be great. Not gonna have no problems at all, right? No problems whatsoever. But the title of this episode is interesting. The title being Deceiver. And I wondered about that. I've wondered about that the entire episode. I was like, Deceiver. And we'll talk at the end of the episode what that title could refer to. I think it can refer to a number of things. But I'm going to try to keep tabs as we go to see who all is the deceiver. There's lots of deceivers in this episode. Lots of deceivers. This whole episode is deception because it on the surface seems like just a casual, we're just setting things up, but I think there's a lot more to that. So yeah, let's tie into this proper. So getting into this episode, and for the record, that shot of that clearing that Gabi and Falco are like getting a drink and clearing off in, it's gorgeous. Like Mappa did a really good job of animating this episode, and that clearing, it is absolutely beautiful. It looks like something it reminds me of Beauty and the Beast, the prologue. It reminds me of that. It's very, very pretty. And so Falco's like, we ran all through the night, right? We ran all through the night. And then there's this big discussion about the armband. The armband, taking it off. So the armband, okay, for Gabi, that armband is a symbol of her identity. It's her agency, right? It is her agency. She said back in episode 8 that she told Falco, she's like, I want someone to look at me with this armband and not think of me poorly. I want them to look at me and think of me as someone that is good. And so she ties this whole concept of the armband to being something like the way that she can prove herself to be a good person. And Falco's like, it's just an armband. Falco is like, he ditches the armband, right? Because he doesn't see the point in it here. And Falco brings up some really good points. Logically, Falco's in the right place. He's like, you'll stand out. And she tries to argue at him every single which way she can. She says first that if a normal person sees it, they won't know what they mean. And Falco's like, yeah, but it's still weird. No one else is wearing them. So even if they don't know the meaning of it, they're going to know it stands out. You're going to look odd. And then he says, soldiers will know what it is. Just take it off. And he's looking up like, he's like, I can't believe I'm having this argument with her. Like, why don't she just do it, you know? He's like, just take it off. And she says, there's no soldiers out here in the sticks, which is not a good assumption because they don't even realize that they're being followed by Kea. So she's wrong there too. Falco's like, no, look. He's like, someone will see it eventually, and who knows if we'll even make it back home, right? He's like, we don't even know what's going to happen. So, and that's when Gabi says, I don't plan to make it back home. I want to get answers from Zeke before I'm caught and killed. So Gabi thinks she's going to die. Since episode 8, Gabi has been expecting herself to die. She wants answers from Zeke about his betrayal, and then she expects to die. Which is funny, Because she expects to die, but this girl fights for her survival a big bit in this episode. Like, she's all about surviving. So I'm like, for someone that thinks they have a death wish, you're really not acting like it. But yeah, she thinks that she's going to get caught and killed, so it doesn't matter. And Falco's like, what? I love that Falco is just like, why? And she says she wants to know, why did you betray us and Marley? Why did you do it? She wants to know from Zeke, what was the point? Because, yeah, she defended Zeke on the airship in front of Jean. She's like, well, wait till you hear from our commander, our war chief. And Jean's like, okay. And then showed her. And so it's such a betrayal to her because Zeke was one of their own and she looked up to Zeke. And for him to betray them, she's like, why? Why did you do this? And that's all she wants is to know. It again ties back to, I want to know, why did Udo and Zofia have to die? It's like, well. And then she says, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to follow me. But I love how serious Falco looks in that moment. He's like, I don't have to follow you, but I am because you're my friend and I like you. It's like, and he's like, fine then, I'll do whatever I want. And the first thing I'm going to do is trash this. And she gets so pissed that he grabs that and asks to give it back. And he's like, what's the point of even wearing it here? He's like, I don't understand. And she's like, I'm a good Eldian. Without that, I'm the same as the Island Devils. So she wants the division, right? It's kind of funny. It's the opposite of Willie. Willie got rid of the armband because he wanted to distance himself from the Marley and Eldians. He wanted to distance himself from the entire image of an Eldian and just be a part of everyone else. Like, he's like, I'm the same as you all. I'm not an Eldian. I'm the same as you. I just happen to have the same blood as them, but I'm not them, you know? And for Gabi, it's the opposite. Like, she thinks that armband is going to distinguish her as one of the good guys. She's like, well, and it kind of makes sense after the battle in the internment zone because the rest of the world is going to view the Eldians of Marley as victims, and she wants to be seen alongside them. She's like, no, I was part of the ones that were attacked. I'm a victim in this. I don't want to be distanced from who I am. And for her, that armband, without it, if she's on this island without that armband, she's the same, she feels, as everyone else. And that's not what she wants. So I get it. I get her emotional appeal here. Gabi does frustrate me in this episode, for the record. And we'll talk about why. I do sympathize a little bit with Falco, because Falco is trying to be like, look, if we're trying to survive in the middle of the wilderness, we need to assimilate. Falco's like, we need to blend in. Wearing this armband is not blending in. They're gonna know. Not every soldier in Paradis knows what we look like and knows that we're Gabi and Falco, so we need to assimilate, and you're not helping the cause. So I relate to a little bit to Falco. I wanted to go, as soon as I got done watching this episode, I wanted to go back through it to be like, okay, I'm trying to reason Gabi's reasoning through all this. Because like I said, I'm playing Eldian's advocate. I'm going to try to understand these characters, all of these characters, in all of their shapes and forms as best as I can. But Gabi did frustrate me in the initial watching of this. So as we go back through and break down her character, I'm hoping that will give me more insight and more stuff to go with. But yeah, I don't blame Falco. He's like, what are you saying? You're acting crazy. And she's just panicked. She's just traumatized and reacting. And she's like, just leave me alone. And then as soon as the camera started moving around, she's like, why did you come with me? And it's like, well, obviously. And then here it comes. Yeah, she says, you didn't have to die too. So showing that she does care about Falco. She does care for Falco. And I think that that's really apparent because throughout the episode, she goes along with what Falco says. You know, she acts tough. But at the end of the day, she is going to go along with Falco. And Falco, in turn, cares about Gabi a lot. Right? He cares of Gabi a lot. And so Gabi's sad. She's like, you didn't have to die too. She's like, Gabi's saying, I killed someone. I killed one of their soldiers. They're going to kill me. That's her mentality. She's a 12-year-old girl that's like, I just killed a soldier, like one of their elite soldiers. They're going to kill me, but you haven't done anything. So you need to distance yourself from me so that they'll spare you. They both care for each other and they both don't want each other to die. And Falco's like, oh God. And I think at that moment he realizes, like, he's like, oh, okay. And then we have Kea. And here's the thing. Kea, in that shot where she's behind the tree, she looks like Willie Tiber's daughter. She does. It's the nose. And I don't know if it's just the way that Mappa draws the characters, that they all kind of look similar. But she look, or maybe it's coming from the manga where they look similar in the manga. But she looks like Willie's daughter. And at the time I was like, oh, I was a little thrown off because I couldn't figure out. I'm like, why is this girl? I didn't know if the show was making a statement having her look like Willie Tiber's daughter, but then we find out. And so this girl is one of the deceivers of the episode. She is a deceiver. Kaya. I'm going to talk about Kaya. So Kaya, I'm going to put a little star by her. She is a deceiver. And she is the girl that Sasha saved, right? Again, I find it's so interesting that Isayama was going to kill Sasha off back in season 2 in that episode with her and then bring her back. And so I wonder, you could kind of see that, because if that girl Kaya was important to the whole story, I could see Isayama killing off Sasha and then bringing Kaya back in the final season and then being like, oh, hey guys, remember Sasha from back in season 2 that died? This is the girl that she saved and was influenced by her. And here's her family. And it could have been like a moment to meet the dad and meet the mom and have all that happen. And then you wouldn't have had the other stuff. But I could see how Isayama had originally planned for Kaya to be in the story and to have the same role that she does now. It still has the same weight of, if she's talking about Sasha's sacrifice, it makes sense story-wise that it could have worked. This whole plot point could have worked either way, whether Sasha died in season 2 or season 4. It still would have the same impact. It would have the same purpose, but I think the impact is greater because Sasha lived until season 4, because not only did we, the audience, get more time with her character, but it ties better to Gabi and her character because Gabi's the one that killed Sasha. So there you go. So yeah. And then they make up the story that they hated their home and they ran away. And for a second, Gabi, all she can think about is violence. For Gabi is just thinking about violence as an answer. Violence as a means of winning and surviving, right? More surviving than anything. She's like, violence is the way that she's going to win and survive. Again, very similar to Eren as we've seen up until this point, right? Whereas Falco is all about the whole idea of communication. He wants to communicate with them and assimilate to survive, right? So that's his method. And he kind of ties more back to Armin. So I find it curious that you have Falco and Gabi, who are kind of in their own way mirrors of Eren and Armin from prior seasons. It's interesting. And she's like, we can't go back. And that line is not just, she's talking about, we're far away, we ran away from home, which they did. They ran away from their home, got on the ship and came to Paradis, and they can't go back. Because they literally can't. They're stuck there. And so, and just that shot of their eyes, it's so good. I love Isayama focuses a lot of eyes this season. It's really interesting. And then Kaya says, and she's like, okay, I see. And she looks so lifeless there. She's like, I see. And in that moment, Kaya knows exactly who they are, because like she said, I heard you guys, you were so loud. So in that moment, whenever she's seeing Gabi lie to her, she's like, okay, fine, come with me. I get it. And the whole thing is that she wanted to learn about them. She wanted to know why they were like that. Why did they hate her so much? And it's also kind of a weird callback because her mom being silent and slowly dying and was being quiet about it, it kind of calls back a little bit to that. It's creepy. But yeah, so she invites them to eat. And she's like, come with me, let's go. I'll show you some food. We'll be great. And they both kind of look at each other like, the hell? And so yeah, we get to this, the Blouse family has for being in the sticks, they have prospered. They've gone from being like a little shack outside the woods to having like all these horses, like a giant stable, these 2 big log cabins, because like Kaya says, they got the orphans from Historia and they're helping raise the orphans. That's why I thought this was Historia's at first, because when I think of Sasha's house, I think of that little house out in the sticks back in season 2. But 5 years have passed since then, and they've, made some more money and gotten better resources and rebuilt. So yeah, it is different. But at first I thought that she was taking her to, I thought she was an orphan taking them to Historia, and I was like, oh shit, they're going to meet the queen. But no, this is much better. This is much more symbolic. But yeah, and she's like, wait here a minute, I'm going to tell my family. And Falco's just like, he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Falco's like, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. And of course, the first thing that Gabi says is, let's take the horse and run. And you know what's funny in that moment, in that shot there that I'm looking at? Gabi has her hair down and it's framed around her eyes. She looks like Eren. And a lot of you have said that Gabi was, her character design is the gender bent version of Eren. She really looks like him in this shot, like except for her eye color, which her eye color is the same eye color as Carla's, which is interesting. She has Eren's facial features, but her eye color is that of Carla's. I'm like, funny that. Interesting. She just wants to take the horse and run. And Falco's like, are you crazy? No. And she's like, they'll come and search here too. We got to run farther. And so that's funny that she says that, because I'm like, she's just in autopilot survival mode. She's like, we can't stop. We have to, again, keep moving forward. Again, another parallel to Eren, that whole idea of keep moving forward. And Falco's like, no, that's a bad idea. And Falco's very right to think that, because one, you don't know if they're going to search there. Two, if you steal a horse, they're in no man's land. They have no clue about the territory. So they don't know how good the Blouse family knows that area. And the answer is they know it very well. And so if they steal a horse, they're going to get caught really quick. So Falco's like, that's a terrible idea. And she says, besides, I'm not going to share a meal with the devils. Yeah, so Gabi is in this place of being uncompromising, right? She's like, I'm not sharing a meal with them. They're the enemy. Why would I want to do that? Maybe because it's going to prove that my entire ideology is wrong. It's like, maybe it's going to prove that I've been, my entire thought process might be faulty, And so she's like, I don't want to share a meal with those devils, right? It's interesting. And Falco's like, now listen here. Falco's like, we don't really have a lot of options. And then she says, come on in. And he's like, we'll be there right there. And he says, I'll do the talking. You keep your mouth shut. So I like that Falco takes some initiative. Falco's like, I'm not dying here and you're not either. So just shut up and let's do this. Okay? And so then and at the moment he's like, you youngins are the runaways. Who might you be? And it's the Blouse family. Oh my God. And there's 3 kids there. And one of them kind of looks like Connie. He's got like the hair and everything. And they say a Southern Marleyan accent. Oh, okay. A Southern Marleyan accent. So that's interesting because Kea makes the note that they're Marleyan. What Kea doesn't know, that explains a lot. Okay. I missed that line. I was so shocked by it being the Blouse family that I missed that line about the Southern Marleyan accent. So interesting. So Kea knows they're Marleyan, right? She knows that they're Marleyan. And at the time, I thought, well, she knows that they've snuck into the country. No, that's not it at all. No. When they say Southern Marleyan accent, the Marleyans have been there, right? Let me backtrack this up a little bit. At this point in the story, right, the Marleyans have been there a year, okay? Been there a year. And so in the present time, the Marleyans have been there like 4 years. So at this point, the Marleyans that were in those scout ships that came and kind of assimilated into the Paradis culture, they could have very well had families, like started their own families there within Paradis and had kids. I mean, but that kind of flies in the face of them being interesting. That flies in the face of them being 12, because it would have established that they came aboard a scout ship when they were like, 8 or 9. I don't know. It just, the fact that it says Southern Marleyan accent is intriguing. Like they know that they're possibly Marleyans, right? Let me go back to that. That's odd. Yeah. All right, let me go back to that moment there. Yeah, who are you youngins? I want to see that line again because that's odd. Now that I think about it, I'm like, but they're old enough they wouldn't have been born there. A Southern Marleyan accent. Oh, is that... Hold on, I'm going to back up and hear who says that, okay? And then I'm going to come back to this. Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Okay, I'm wrong. I'm very wrong. I missed that line. Forget the last minute I talked because I missed that line. Gabi's the one that notices that the Blouse family has a Southern Marleyan accent. Oh. Okay. So, it could be, it could be that the Blouse family that Sasha's family's from were originally Marleyans that came inside the wall. That's interesting. That adds a whole nother layer to all this because they recognize that accent that they had. It wasn't like the normal Eldian accent of Paradis. So this whole way that they've been speaking, Gabi recognizes it. So it's possible, it is very possible then that Sasha's family are not all Eldian. They've got some Marleyan in them. That's fascinating. Okay. That adds another layer to this. Cool. And so then, so then Falco says that we're siblings, Ben and Mia, which are very simple names, Ben and Mia. And he's just like, his eyes are shaking. He's like, we have our reasons, but we ran away from home, and we'll do whatever you want. Just let us stay for a few days. And the Blouse man can tell that they're scared, and he's like, He's like, you youngins don't need to be bowing like that. Interesting. Welcome to Browse Stables. Some people say Browse, some people say Blouse. Y'all can stay as long as you like. Come and join us for breakfast. And so then we have the breakfast scene, and it's like, it looks like barley soup, which is an odd choice for breakfast, but I'm not going to judge, but it seems like barley soup. But yeah. And then the mom is like, are y'all tired? You go lie down once you're done eating. And Gabi's like, this is her nightmare, sitting down eating with them. And it's such a commentary going back to the Reiner like dinner scene in episode 2 when Reiner was like talking about how like the worst things that they'd done and it really wasn't anything bad at all. Reiner couldn't think of any reason why he could call them devils. He couldn't think of any reasons. And now Gabi's getting a taste of that. She's seeing that these people are treating her with kindness, and she doesn't know what to do because it's flying in the face of everything she's been taught from birth. Like everything she's been taught by that family is getting thrown out the window, right? With this breakfast. And the woman and Sasha's mom rubbed her head, but Gabi's like, get away. And Falco's like, oh shit. And all those kids look over at her and they're like, oh. And in the moment, And the dad is kind of like, hey, Lisa. Lisa is Sasha's mom's name. Lisa. He's like, Lisa, this girl's clearly got some, issues. And the woman's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Lisa says, I'm sure y'all have been through a lot. And Falco's like, sorry about that, my sister. She's like, thanks for breakfast. And Gabi's she's so distraught. But honestly, he's like, it's so good. And Falco's just making it up. And the crazy thing is, when you look over at those kids, and the one kid with the glasses with the nose, he looks kind of like Udo. And the one girl with the red hair kind of looks like Sophia. And the one boy there kind of looks like Connie. But they just look, the whole point is they look just like kids that Gabi and Falco are. They look just like them. They're the same. They're people just the same. But they're on an opposite side of the table, right? They're sitting on the opposite side. But they're the same. And when they look over at Gabi and Falco, it's like they know. They know that there's something wrong, and they're like, we get it. You guys are struggling. So were we. We're orphans too. We get it. So it's like they understand that something's up. And then the mom and dad they both look the same, like, we know something's up. And we get it. You guys are traumatized. And Gabi she can barely lift that spoon to her mouth. And then Kea looking over like, So, damn, okay. So yeah, and Kea's like, Kea's an interesting character in all this. I never thought we'd ever come back to her. We saw her in episode 9 at the graveyard, and I was like, we'll never come back to her character again. That was a nice little cameo that she made. It's a nice cameo, getting to see her one more time. Nope. And we may possibly see her in a future episode. So there's that. Okay. So we cut to the port. And there is the old Hizaru family. So the Hizarus, it's funny. So let's go back to this timeline because we're going back to this. Again, things are slowly coming together. So 2 years ago, Eren said they didn't need Hizuru. Said no Hizuru contract. Right? He basically said that, like, no, we don't need Hizuru right now. We're weighing our options. We're not going to agree to this contract. We don't need y'all right now. We're branching out and seeing what other options are out there. But the Hizurus in the present time are back, right? And Hizuru have the aircraft. Okay? So, somehow, and also in the 2 years ago, Eren said no to the Beast Titan plan, to Zeke. He said no to Zeke 2 years ago. But somehow in these 10 months, Hange agreed to the plan. All right, we don't know the circumstance yet, but Hange agreed 10 months ago, around between a year and 10 months ago, Hange agreed to the plan, right? And we'll make note about Eren. Eren started going off on his own. All right, so something happened. Again, I'm telling you, Eren started going off on his own around 10 months ago. A few months of that, hanging out with historians, secretly rendezvousing with her. I'm just saying. But yeah, so the leaders of Hizuru have nothing but praise for Eldia's bravery. So, okay, it makes sense. Makes sense. Again, the whole suit and tie thing. Here's the thing. The suit and tie thing with the guys that are surrounding Hizuru, they kind of look like not only the Kenny squad, the military police when Kenny was part of it with the black trench coat, but they also look like the volunteers. They also look like the brave volunteers who have the black suits and the white shirts underneath it. So I'm like, is Hizuru, are they connected with the whole new Eldian Empire and the whole brave volunteers? I wouldn't be surprised if they are. If Zeke's connected to it and they're connected to it along with Eren, I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, she praises them, and that's why she pieced out from Willie. She was like, I'm not about to die with y'all. I've got bigger fish to fry. But yeah, interesting. And so Zachary's like, we're deeply honored. Welcome to the world's most dangerous island. It sounds like a game show. You know, it sounds like Jurassic Park. Like, welcome to the island. It's all a show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. And she's like, indeed, but this time our goal is to witness said danger in person. They're here to see the rumbling. They're here to see the test run. Okay? And that's the observation craft that runs on the iceburst stone. Okay. A flying boat, which is a plane. Yep. Will ascertain the true power of the rumbling. So that's why they're keeping Eren in the jail cell, to activate the rumbling, but they need Zeke to do that. So I'm assuming they're planning on bringing Zeke and Eren together, right? So by that logic, at some point, they want Zeke and Eren together for the rumbling, for the demonstration. Is that what we're thinking? At some point, but they're just waiting until the right time. They're waiting until all the pieces are in place before they do that, is what it sounds like. It's going to be really funny if that all getting into place ties into the exact amount of time that Reiner and them take to get there. Can't imagine that it's all going to line up. Maybe that's Zeke's intention. We'll talk about that later. But, so then we have a group of people surrounding where Hange is going into the military police. And they're saying, are the rumors true about Jaeger being imprisoned and the volunteers being detained? Are the rumors true? Mm-hmm. Yep. We want an explanation, Hange. Why are there orders to evacuate Shiganshina? Because that's where they're going to do the rumbling. Yep, that's where they're going to do the rumbling. They're going to evacuate Shiganshina. All right. What irony. What a weird, ironic thing that, like, okay, we're going to demonstrate the rumbling at the place where this all began, the place that we fought to get back, and that's where we're going to destroy the wall and start the rumbling. Okay. It's very interesting. So then we have old Demo Reeves' son, right? We got old Flagle here. Yeah, him confronting. He says the Reeves company was put in charge of rebuilding it. So yeah, the Flagle's like, dude, we just spent the last 4 years rebuilding Shiganshina, and now you're going to evacuate it and destroy it? What? Why are we doing that? Which kind of sucks. Yeah, you spent all that time rebuilding it after they retook it, and it doesn't matter now. And then Hanji just like asks the MPs. Like Hanji's like, I'm done. And so then the one reporter, his name starts with a P, and I always forget his name. It's like Purdue or something French. It's odd. But he jumps in and says, Hanji, Jaeger's victory opened a path to our future. So we have the undertakings, right, of the new Eldian Empire. All right? The new Eldian Empire is taking shape, which is very curious, right? And I'm going to put a little side note over here about that. I'm going to put a little side note over here because I think it's important. That so we have in this scene, we have the reporters, right? The reporters and citizens that are rallying behind this new Eldian Empire, right? And it kind of makes sense why they would. It makes perfect sense why they would. They're like, we had a victory against the people that oppress us. We found out that Marley sent these Titans over, that Marleyans have been turning our people into Titans, that Marleyans have sent these Titans over to kill us, that Marleyans are planning an attack against us, and we struck back and we won. So, of course, the reporter's like, this is good news. Our people had their first victory, and it's all Eren Jaeger that did it. So they're all on board. Interesting. A future where Eldians can live. If we stop the Marleyans, our people won't get turned into Titans anymore. We won't have to fight the Titans. We'll be able to be free. Sure. That's what it sounds like, right? It's true. If that's true, all Eldians should have a voice in how Jaeger is handled. So they believe that the citizens should have a hand in Eren's fate, right? The funny thing is, Eren has established he doesn't have to be there. He doesn't have to be in that prison if he doesn't want to, but he's doing it intentionally. He has a reason behind it. And I'm wondering if part of the reason is to help rally all the citizens for him, right? Maybe it's not. I said episodes ago, I'm like, Eren's whole deal is to rally together all the Marley and Eldians, but no, that's not the case. His whole idea is to free Eldia, free Paradis from the rest of the world. So his thing may be biding his time and then getting all the Eldians of Paradis together to get on board with his plan. That may be it. I don't know. That could be it more than what I originally thought. But yeah, and then old Roy's like, Hanji, you once said the taxpayers decide what to make of information. Like you said that we have the right to choose what we believe in and what we don't, right? So have you changed your views? And I don't think that Hanji has. Hanji's just like, damn it. The situation has changed. Our walls are open to the world. The meaning of this info has changed. And Hanji's like, you all don't understand. Like, this isn't just us versus Marley anymore. It's us versus the world. Hanji, it's funny because I'm assuming back at the roots of all of this, it was just Paradis versus Marley, and that was it. And if we attack Marley and stop them from attacking us, that'll be the end of it. But it's not anymore. Hanji's like, we now have to face not only one country, but many nations. It's bigger than what you all can imagine. And we're in deep shit now. And so everything from before has changed with this attack on the internment zone. It's all changed. And I love that Flagel says, I know you're in a tough situation, Hanji. I love that. So look me in the eyes and tell me I can trust you. Again, the topic of trust is so big in this episode. And I love that Hanji's like, and Hanji does look back, but their eye is like full of they're just so mad. They're like, this is all for the sake of the Eldian people. Everything we're doing now is to help Eldia. So Hanji's saying our goals are not different than Eren's. It's just we're trying to do things right and do the best that we can. And it's complicated. Oh, God. And they're all just staring at Hanji. And so I feel for Hanji in these last two episodes. Because Hanji, when they say that Erwin only made one mistake in his life and it was putting Hanji in charge, I'm like, no. And we're going to tie back to Sonis's words. That callback is just It's perfect because it's so fitting. But Hanji's just realizing how deep this is getting and how complicated it's getting and what it's going to cost. And it's like, it's not just fighting Titans anymore. It's a lot more complicated than that. So yeah, so then we have these four. And Mikasa, let's see which group is here. I wanted to pause it. You're the ones who leaked info about Eren. Okay? So Holger, Wim, Louise, and Flock. The 3 recruits and Flock. Again, funny that we have 4 of them, right? We had 4 warrior candidates, right? We had Udo, Zofia, and we had Falco and Gabi. We had 4 warrior candidates. You have 4 warriors right now, which is Reiner and Porco and Peak and Colt. Colt is technically a candidate. Then you have, technically you have Connie, Jean, Armin, and Mikasa together. That's 4. And then here you have 4. That's Holger, Wim, Louise, and Flock. So, I'm going to put them over here and put down here. Holger, we don't know which one's Holger and which one is Wim. So we have Holger, such weird names. Wim, Flock, and Louise. And we'll talk about Louise. Louise, what a callback. Damn. And Louise's father was in the Survey Corps. Okay. So they're the ones that leaked info to Eren. Okay. And, I want to see who else is in the room. So Armin and Mikasa are in the room along with Jean and Connie. I find it funny that Jean and Connie are in civilian clothes too. Well, Jean has on his military jacket, his like Survey Corps old jacket, the old school style, but Connie is not in military clothes. That's interesting. And then chairs. Chairs and lanterns. It's, you know what? We built up chairs and lanterns the last 2 seasons, and in this season 4, they're all coming together. There's chairs and lanterns everywhere. I feel like I've cracked the code with that one. Good symbolism, Isayama. But yeah, the idea of sitting down with them. And Flock says, because Eren should be freed. He hasn't done anything wrong. Well, I mean, he kind of just left the country without telling anybody and staged a massive assault that caused deaths of civilians and got a war declaration against him. But yeah, no, he did nothing wrong. It's funny, yeah. He should be freed. And he says, he challenged an imposing enemy and grasped victory. Technically true. I will give Flock that. That is technically true. He challenged an imposing enemy. Sure. Grasped victory. Sure. Okay. And you know, Connie's just staring at him like, but we lost Sasha because of it. And so then Flock says, victory in the form of the rumbling, which secures our right to live. Okay. That makes sense in Flock's mentality there. Eren saved the lives of everyone in the new Eldian Empire. So Flock is all on board this new Eldian Empire. Flock is like, spread it around. We've got badges. We've got bumper stickers. We've got the full 9 yards. We've got a flag already made up. We're ready to go. Flock is like, he is ready to launch the merchandise assault with this new Eldian Empire. And Louise and the others seem on board with it too. But they're recruits, so they're new to the fold. They don't know everything that Flock and the others have experienced. Okay. And then Hange says there is no guaranteeing that the rumbling will work as planned and can save us. So Hange is countering that, being like, yeah, theoretically, we use this rumbling and we win. But there's a lot of factors we have no clue about. We've not done the test run. We don't know what it even looks like. We don't even know what the rumbling looks like. So we can't just bank on it without having any idea. Like, Hange is very much approaching this from a scientific standpoint and saying, we have a hypothesis, but we've not run any test research. Hange's like, we have to go through at least some clinical trials before we can even clear this. You know, Hange is thinking scientifically, and Flock is thinking like logistically and militarily. Like, it's a different perspective that they're both coming at in this conversation. At this point, it is no more than a myth. Hanji's like, unless it's a theory, unless we prove it, we can't rely on it. Right? And that it keeps up with Hanji's character. And then Flock says, well, it's only because you're keeping Eren locked up. And that's the thing. Flock is right. Yeah, you're keeping Eren locked up. But what we know as the audience is that Eren can leave at any time, supposedly. So what's he waiting on? Interesting. And I love this clear divide. There's a shot here, and I feel like it's from the manga, where there is a clear divide in the window, and you have Flock and the recruits on one side, you have Hange on the other. Like, there is a division there, and it's very, very intentional. And the body language that Jean has, Jean is like crossing his arms like this, like the body language. That clearly shows that Jean is uncomfortable with the conversation and where it's going, and then Connie's just sitting there like, looking. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. Do we really have the luxury of wasting time? So really, honestly, Flock is viewing this whole situation kind of the same way Reiner and the others are viewing. Like McGaff points out that we have to wait 6 months for the Global Alliance to attack Paradis. Hanji's saying we need to wait this out until we get more information, until we figure out what we're doing. And Flock and them are saying basically the same thing. I feel like we're going to have 2 teams set up here. I feel like we're setting up 2 teams, right? We got 2 squads. I feel like they're going to be mirrors of each other. I'm going to put a little arrow here. We're going to have Holger, Wim, Flock, and Louise being the mirrors of Reiner, Porco, Peak, and Colt. Conveniently, there's 1 woman in each of them, right? And they have opposite hair colors and opposite hairstyles. Seems fitting, right? I feel like they're going to be the anti-warrior crew, whatever the anti-warriors. I guess they'd be the soldiers then, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they? Interesting. Or I guess volunteers. Yeah, do we have the luxury of wasting time? At this rate, our victory will be squandered. And I was going to call out that guy that's in the survey court uniform that's like talking to his buddy and like whispering something over to him. I was like, rude, shut up. Even though Flock drives me crazy sometimes, it's like a pet peeve of mine if somebody's having a conversation and we're supposed to be listening and people start talking in the background. It's like a big pet peeve. I'm like, shut up, we're supposed to be listening. So it's like a big pet peeve. So when that guy started talking with the other guy, I'm like, shh, we're supposed to be paying attention. So then, yeah, Flock says this very, very big statement that he passes it off like it's nothing. But I'm like, Eren Yeager will lead our country. Please release him at once. So King Eren, right? That's what we're suggesting, right? Are we suggesting King Eren? He's going to lead our country? That's kind of what Flock's implying, is that he's going to be our leader. So King Eren, Queen Historia, I get away with nothing. But yeah, and he's very civil. He's just like, please release him at once. Flock's like, I'm asking in my best Olive Garden patron voice to get me more breadsticks and release Eren Yeager from the prison cell. Please. And Hanji just looks at him and says, yeah, you could be right. Eren could be the one to lead our country. Hanji's like, if we're not careful, Eren could be the one to lead our country. Yeah. And we get this shot of Armin and Mikasa. Y'all warned me on Patreon that Mappa likes Armin. He looks really good in this shot. Him and Mikasa. That you could be right about Eren leading us. Mm-hmm. One way or another, I made the decision to carry out Zeke's plan. So here's the thing too. Going back to this timeline, at some point within the last 2 years, Hanji made the decision to go along with Zeke's plan and carry it out. Why? We haven't gone back to that yet. And that ties back to last episode, right? Because Hanji was like, I get your sense of urgency and wanting to do stuff, but you shouldn't have gone to the island and been hasty and caused all of this. So Hanji was saying, I get why you did it, but you shouldn't have. And Hanji made the comment being like, I never thought you'd be one that would want to sacrifice Historia. So that implies that both Hanji and Eren wanted to go along with this plan. Why? We don't know yet. We don't get that yet. But there's some reasoning there. There's something going on. And I think that ties back to Hanji, why she confronted Eren last episode. It seems like at one point, Hanji and Eren were in the same boat, and then something has happened since then that has changed their minds. So, again, we aren't privy to certain pieces of information, and it's very frustrating. So, I'm curious. I'm curious to see where this all ends up going. But yeah. So, Hanji's like, the full responsibility is mine. Therefore, I won't tolerate disobedience. So Hanji's like, I take responsibility. This whole mess is my fault. But because of that, I'm going to be extra strict. And so you guys will be tried for leaking information about Eren that you shouldn't have done. All right. Interesting. Have them confined. And Flock, oh, that look in Flock's face, he's like, I'm not going to be surprised if Eren breaks them out. I'm not going to be surprised if Eren busts out and busts them out because they're part of the New Eldian Empire. They're part of the new Restorationist crew, right? I won't be surprised if Eren busts them out. Won't be surprised at all. On Flock's face, he's just like, if it's for the sake of humanity, so be it. So if you're doing things for the sake of humanity, fine. That's what it takes. I'm okay with that. Okay. And we don't see Hanji's expression. We don't see what Hanji's response to that is. We just see our King John. John is so much taller than Flock. It's kind of weird. John is a tall dude. He's much taller than Flock. Interesting. Taking them away. And then we go back to Sonus's words. This role of ours, there's an order to it. When one's role is done, another steps in to start the act again. And God, tying back to Sonus in the chair getting tortured, all of that. And yeah, so the idea is that Hanji, you're now fulfilling the role that Sonus had. Like you're trying to keep order in this system no matter what. And if you go, someone else is gonna have to step in and do the exact same thing. So I can't believe it ties back to him so well. I love it. And then him crying saying, good luck, Hanji. Like, I went through hell with this job, so hope you can handle it. And then, man, Hanji. Just being so frustrated. And I love Hanji just being like, damn it, he's right. And I didn't realize it at the time. I'm pooped. Yeah. No. And Hanji's like, no, I can't be tired now. There's more I need to investigate. So Hanji thinks something's up, okay? So Hanji agreed to the plan originally. But now, 10 months to a year later, Hanji wants to investigate more. Okay. And so Hanji thinks there's more to the story. There's stuff we're missing. Hanji is kind of like us, the audience. Hanji knows more than us, the audience, because Hanji is privy to information from a year to 10 months ago that we don't know yet. But Hanji, like us, the audience, wants to investigate and see what more there is. So I like that we have Hanji investigating, trying to figure stuff out. We have Levi watching the Beast Titan, trying to figure stuff out. It's fascinating. Yep. And so then, yeah, we cut to Louise in the jail cell. And Louise says, have you ever been in this cell, Mikasa? And she's so small. Mikasa's like, no. She says, that's a shame. So I don't regret what I did if victory is our ultimate goal. So let's talk about Louise. Louise and Kea are very similar in this. I'm going to tie Louise over here. Louise is the girl that Mikasa saved, which is interesting. So we have two characters. We have Kea and Louise, right? That are both girls that were saved by two of our girls of the Survey Corps. One was Sasha and one was Mikasa, right? And I would say Louise is a deceiver too, in an interesting way, because she says, I don't have any, Louise is hashtag no regrets, because she thinks that everything they're doing is leading towards victory. So she has no regrets. She's like, victory is our ultimate goal. So I don't regret what I did. Obeying the law isn't the end all be all, right? So she does not, rules need not apply, right? She's like, you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs, right? She is not one that is going to follow authority, which is curious because she's in the Scouts. So I'm like, seems a little problematic, but okay. You're kind of, resisting the rank and file. And Mikasa says, stop it, Louise. You'll only be here longer. Like, don't hurt yourself. Like, don't make this any more difficult than it has to be. Right? And that's when Louise says, I'm still the same person as the one you saved that day. Like, I haven't changed. I realized something when you, a human, took down that Titan. That without power, you can't protect anything. So, okay. And I'm going to tie Mikasa, or tie Louise over here, to this idea that without power, you cannot protect anything. That is, I mean, that's going along with Eren. That's going along with what he's thinking. Eren is thinking, if I don't have power, I can't protect the people I care about. That's why I've got to do what I've got to do. I've got to get this power because I need to protect them. And Luis is on that same mentality. And she got that inspiration from Mikasa, of all people. So it's fascinating. But we go back to that scene from season 1. She's like, I learned it's okay to fight against senseless violence. Okay. And she said it's okay to fight against the violence, which is interesting. She's like, we can fight violence with violence. What they're doing is senseless, right? And for us, it's to save us. So ever since that day, I want to get closer to you. So she kind of wants to be like, I think that Kea, knowing that Sasha is dead, does not have the agenda of becoming closer to Sasha. Because 1, she knows Sasha's dead. But 2, I think she's trying to just live out Sasha's image. She, in Kea's case, Kea wants to live out Sasha's will and image. She wants to be the type of person that would save someone like Sasha would. And Louise wants to get closer to Mikasa because she's like, well, you're a powerful person, so I want to know what you know. And Mikasa's like, girl, you don't. Yeah. And then I like that Mikasa like yanks at her. I thought for a split second that Mikasa was going to give her the scarf. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. But Mikasa tugging at the scarf. It's interesting. And then Louise notices it. And Louise asks, why did you join the scout regiment? And Louise says if it was for Jaeger freeing him. And that's going too far. Because that's, Mikasa has always, everyone's known that Mikasa has a connection with Eren. But Mikasa's like, let's not go there. You don't know me that well, girl. You don't. Yeah, I have one thing to say, and it's keep your mouth shut. And Louise is like, okay. And then this scene that happens next is that she looks over and Louise has done the Sasagio, like the devote your hearts, right? So Louise does the devote your heart sign, right? She gives that sign to Mikasa, like devote your heart, like put your heart and soul into whatever you're doing. And she does that gesture to Mikasa. And here's the thing, Mikasa has like a moment involving episode 6 from season 1 with Eren. And it's Eren killing the guy that attacked her. And there's the shot of the birds flying, right? And the birds flying, and then her looking over and him saying, you're safe now. Okay, Mikasa. So, okay, before we go any further, that whole sequence is kind of Mikasa connecting to Louise and Eren's point, right? The idea that without power, you can't protect anything. That sometimes you have to use violence to protect the people that you care about. So Eren proved that in that moment that he saved her. So over here you have Mikasa, and I'll just use the same one. So Mikasa having that instance, that flashback of Eren saving her, saying that she's safe now. And the birds flying. I want to talk about that. Okay? So, okay. Mikasa has always had this intense bond with Eren. Like, she has always been tied very close to Eren and his safety, right? And so, in that moment, it reminds me a lot of the OVA. It reminds me of the OVA where she's like, where it's her looking in the mirror, and the mirror's like, you're going to be a murderer no matter what. Doesn't matter. And it's like, if you're going to keep him safe, you have to do this. And so, Louise makes the comment that without power, you can't protect anything. And that devote your heart to something. The moment she does the devote your heart, that's when Mikasa starts thinking about Eren saving her. And the birds flying away, all I could think about in that moment was, okay, is the birds flying away like showing their freedom? So is Mikasa connecting more to Eren's side of the argument in this moment where she's realizing that maybe Eren's whole thing is that in order for us to be free, I have to have this power to protect the people I care about, which includes you, Mikasa. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why I wonder, because Mikasa and Armin seem like they are still on different wavelengths. Like Armin, his wavelength is getting more and more disconnected from Eren. Armin is getting more and more disconnected because he doesn't know how to feel about Eren anymore. He thought he knew him, but now he doesn't. Whereas Mikasa, I think, is still hanging on. And I think at this moment she has the flashbacks. I'm wondering why she has this flashback of him and why it's affecting her like this. I don't know yet. Don't tell me. Don't spoil me. I don't want to know yet. But I think it's interesting. I'm like, okay, all right. What do we do with that? But she's had some kind of freaky occurrence where she's flashing back to Eren killing someone to save her, taking a life to save her, and to keep her safe. Now, the thing of it is, the life that he took, the person he killed, was a person that, like, raped and killed her mom. So, yeah, he wasn't an innocent civilian by any means. But I think in that moment that Louise makes the gesture, Mikasa connects to Eren and his ideology. So I don't know what to make of that. It's interesting. It's a weird scene. But the whole thing with the birds makes me think that, like, she wants to free Eren. I'm like, is she going to try to free Eren because she thinks it's the right thing to do and she agrees with Louise? I don't know. I get a little nervous that Mikasa's going to free him. I don't know how to feel about that. We'll see. But, okay. Information available for public disclosure. The Paradis Island Devils. An insult referring to King Fritz and the Eldians who fled to Paradis Island. In Titan studies, the Paradis Island threat theory claims the Eldians who fled there still bear a grudge from the Great Titan War and despise the rest of the world. With the threat of Eren Yeager now apparent, the insult holds truer than ever. So that makes sense with Gabi's ideology. And Gabi thinks that all the people on Paradis hate the Marley and Eldians. They hate them. They bear a grudge. So the Eldians who fled there still bear a grudge from the Titan War. And that they hate the rest of the world. And Eren Yeager's attack seems to prove that. But we know that it's the opposite. They really don't bear a grudge in the rest of the world except for Marley because Marley attacked them. So, why? Like, why can't your history textbooks be correct? Okay. And so we cut to this cell, like this prison with the bird right outside the prison cell pecking, right? 10 months ago, there was an opening celebration for the Trost Railway that Eren and the others worked on. Okay, and this prison looks much nicer than the old prison that Gabi and Falco were in. The guard watching you suddenly changed to Flock Forster. Okay. So, at this point in the episode, I was like, okay, little tiny details are getting revealed that Yelena is pushing off as nothing. But I'm like, I don't think it's nothing. I think Pixis is wise to say this. So 10 months ago, when the Flock Railway, the guard with Yelena, all right, changed to Flock. 10 months ago. Okay. All right. So Pixis is saying that. While the party was in full swing, Flock escorted you to your lodgings. And a man currently detained for escort. So he's saying, okay, during the party, during the celebration, Flock escorted you back to your lodgings. Did you guys, like, hook up or do something crazy in secret? What's up? Furthermore, your lodgings were a few dozen kilometers from Eren Yeager's home. So they're only a few kilometers from Eren's home, okay? Okay, so they were close to Eren, meaning they could have met up with him, right? Meaning that could have been a thing, okay? All right. And she's just like, really, we're doing this? And it just so happens that around this time, Eren began moving on his own. Okay. So what's the deal? On the bright side, and Pixis is like, well, there's this. So we got this kind of grim, crazy, suspicious stuff going on. But on the bright side, I get to talk to a pretty lady, so hi. Pixis finally gets what he wants. And Yelena's like, you are not my type. And then we cut straight to her to a horse. Oh, horse shit. Right? So, okay, so interesting. So I feel like those three takeaway details are pretty important. One, 10 months ago during the Trost Railroad thing, Eren started moving on his own. Okay? The guard with Yelena changed to Flock. They were a few kilometers from Eren's home. what? So again, in that month and in that year and 2 months between when they started on the railroad and Eren was like, you guys are my besties, I'll never do anything to harm you, to 10 months ago, something went down. Something happened within that year. And then 10 months ago, the plan that we now know of that's led to the present started to take shape. I'm pretty sure. So the question is, what the hell happened? I want to know. So, and we're going to find out eventually down the road. Just not yet. And that's the problem. Okay? And so, but anyway, we go back to these horses. This horse at the very beginning here. And I love that it just keeps zooming in on the horse. And for the record, if y'all have ever been around a horse, horses do bite. It's not funny. The fact, I don't know if Isayama's had horses, because when it bites her head, that is not to be taken, that is to be taken seriously. That will hurt. And then she's just like, oh my God, the horse. And then of course she trips and falls and the bucket lands on her head. It's great. It's great comic relief. It's great comic relief seeing Gabi just slip and fall in a bunch of horse shit and then sit there. And I love Falco's, Gabi! Like, it's so dramatic. It's hilarious. And she's like, why is this happening to me? And the horse is like, ha ha ha. This is the devil's doing. It's the devil. And he's like, no, it's the horse's doing. That's the big line here, right? That's the big line here. I wanted to go back to that. That he's like, no, it's not the horse. So it's the horse, not the devil. Calling it out for what it is. Okay? And that ties back to the whole idea that, you know, anyone can be a god or a devil. It just takes someone to believe it. In that moment, Gabi thinks that all this horse's actions and stuff is happening to her because of the devil. And Falco is taking a very literal approach, being like, no, it has nothing to do with gods or devils. It's literally a horse. There's nothing supernatural or divine about it. But I feel like that's like a meta commentary about their situation. And he's like, there's not a horse that would let you ride it. He's like, none of these horses are going to let you ride them away. And she's like, well, I wasn't trained how to ride one. And he's like, well, then why'd you want to steal a horse? Do you think that was going to work out for you? So they're working in the horse stables. And he's like, we won't learn a thing out here in the sticks. And he says, I think it's better to hunker down than to roam around. I kind of agree with Flock. If you're safe here, it's better to just lie low and wait things out than to try to run around and not know where you're going. Because they have no clue the layout of the land. They have no clue where they're going. They don't know the geography. He's like, if we just run around aimlessly, we're going to get caught. If we hide here, at least we can hide somewhere and it's relatively safe. And then Gabi's like, what are you talking about? And then Falco says, let's stay here and wait for help. Eventually the world will attack the island. And Reiner and my brother will come, I bet. And Gabi's like, well, aren't you pissed at Zeke? There was a traitor right among us. Don't you want to find out stuff? And Falco's like, there's nothing we can do. So Falco's looking at it. He's like, yeah, he doesn't say no. He doesn't say no that he doesn't want to find out. But he's like, what can we do? We don't know where Zeke is. We have no way to find him. It's a bad idea. If we just sit here and wait, maybe Reiner and Colt will find us and we can go with them and they'll have a better idea of what to do. I don't disagree with Falco. You could argue it's a cowardly way to just hide out, but he's just thinking of survival and that's his way of doing it. And Gabi's like, And he doesn't answer Gabi's question. And then Gabi just changes the subject saying, well, what the hell is Mia? Why am I your little sister? Why does it even matter? And that's when Kea comes in, asking them to have lunch. So yeah, them out there eating the sandwiches, saying that they're quick learners and they work hard too. And it's like, yeah, girl, you don't even know. They've been in like literal wars. And that's when Falco's like, all the workers here are pretty young. Don't you guys, child labor laws and everything. How's that work? And then Kea says that everyone here is an orphan. The Queen's policies give support to kids without families. Because Historia, grew up by herself like that. So they all have support. And Gabi's just like, the Queen. All of us here lost our parents 4 years ago. Which is around the time of Shiga and Sheena. And then, you haven't. And so then there's this conversation. Kea's basically saying that during Shiga and Sheena and all of that, they basically, not during Shiganshina, but when Zeke, so here's the crazy thing, when Zeke attacked Walrose and had their families, like Connie's family, turned into Titans, it's technically Zeke's fault. That's the crazy thing. It's Zeke's fault that her mom died, right? Because if Zeke hadn't turned Connie's village into Titans, they wouldn't have came to her village and killed her mom. So it's technically Zeke's fault that they're dead. Again, Zeke, super suspicious. Zeke did not have to turn... I'm so suspicious because Zeke did not have to turn Connie's village into Titans to help with the mission with Reiner and them. I don't... and you guys could argue that he did because it was to lure them over there to the wall and all that jazz, but I'm like, you can't tell me there wasn't any other way that they could have done that, and I don't know. I don't want to have that discussion. Well, that was 2 seasons ago. So yeah. And then Gabi says you haven't accepted your guilt. And Falco's like, stop! Have you forgotten the atrocities that people of this island committed? And Falco's like, please shut up. And she keeps going. Only when an Eldian accepts the depths of their sin can they begin to atone. So, it's funny that Gabi says that, because that Gabi's mentality is kind of like Karl Fritz, in a sense. Karl Fritz, and through the Founding Titans vow, you could say Uri too, is that Karl Fritz was like, we've sinned so much that we can't atone. So we're just going to stay out here and live out the rest of our days until they come and kill us. And that's all we can do. That was his logic. And it's ironic in a weird way that Gabi is basically having the same logic as Karl Fritz, but she thinks that all the people of Paradis are bad, but she thinks that they're bad for the same reason as the man that founded Paradis to begin with. So it's like, yeah. I'm talking about atonement. And Kaya's like, is that related to our parents dying? And Falco's just like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Yeah, Kaya's like, is that related to our parents dying? This whole thing about sins and atonement? And Gabi's like, of course. Even if you act like a saint, your sins are too great to escape. And there is some truth to what Gabi's saying, because Gabi's like, no matter how saintly you act, if you have sinned, it doesn't make up for it. And it's like, okay, I get what you're saying by that. Sure. And then, yeah, just so straight-faced. And Falco's just like, we're in her debt. And so at the same time, Falco says, we're in her debt. She saved us. Why are you talking? And then Kaya says, is that what they teach you in Marley? And that line just like completely caught me off guard. I was like, holy shit. And she's like, those are indisputable truths. And then it's like, what did you just say? And she says, you two come from Marley, right? Like, mm-hmm. And he's like, how'd you know? And she's like, you yelled it out loud in the woods. Everyone could hear you. Chaos is like, I stumbled across you while you were talking out loud. Wasn't hard to put 2 and 2 together. I'm not dumb. And so, yeah, she knows that they're from Marley. And Falco is like, you knew that from the get-go? And Falco's trying to play it off like, wow, and you didn't say anything. Funny that. But Gabi's like, shit. Like, she goes into, like, hyperactive overdrive. Like, well, time to kill someone. Time to kill you. You know, you're sneaky. Like, nope. Gabi's like, I'm about to stab you with this pitchfork. And then Falco stops her. And again, he's like, what are you doing? And then Gabi says, the devil revealed her true colors. I knew something was up. Island devils can't be this kind. So again, that's it. Gabi thinks that it's all a trick. That her kindness was a lie. Gabi's like, no one can be this kind to us. No one can treat us like equals. It has to be a lie. And that's the saddest thing I think about this episode, is that up until they had the argument inside Kaya's old house, Gabi thinks that there's no way someone could be that kind. Give us free breakfast to strangers? Who would do that? No, it has to be a trick. Like, be nice to us despite everything we've done to your people? No, it has to be a trick. Like, Gabi is so convinced that it's a hoax that she thinks that she's just waiting for the chance to prove Falco wrong, to prove that Kaya's not good. And Kaya, I give Kaya props. Kaya does not take any of her bullshit. Kaya, like, dishes it right back. And we will talk about it. And Falco's like, quit being an idiot. And yeah, Kaya could have outed them right now. But she says no. And they're both like, And then Kea says, Mia's jealous and thinks I'm stealing her brother. And they're like, really? She's getting along with people? She's cheered up some? Oh, cool. Great. Nice. You guys are weird. Don't horse around. You'll get hurt. Quit trying to stab each other with pitchforks. That's serious. And the way that Falco holds the pitchfork is almost like he holds a gun. I thought of that as soon as he did this with the pitchfork, I'm like, he holds it like he holds a gun. I'm like, interesting. And then, yeah, they apologize and they just look at her. And even Gabi's like, what? Why? And that's when they take her to the old village. I honestly love this scene. This scene is so good. It's probably my favorite scene of the whole episode is the scene inside the old house. Like going back 4 years ago. Like everything's grown up around the windmill and everything. It's all grown up. They've abandoned it. It's kind of crazy that they just abandoned the village. I guess because nobody wanted to go back there. The memories were too much. And they were like, don't want to go back here. Or the people were all dead. So they really couldn't afford to. But yeah, Kea says 4 years ago, a Titan showed up here. The villagers ran when they saw it and left behind my mom who couldn't run. And she just leads them back to her home. There was nothing I could do, so I sat down. And that line is funny. From right here, I sat and listened to my mom get eaten. And it's kind of interesting because when she said I couldn't do anything, so I sat down. And the moment that she said that, I thought of Reiner in Declaration of War. Because Eren kind of had Reiner in a position where he couldn't do anything but sit down. He's like, either you're going to sit down and talk to me, or Falco could die, you could die, everybody else could die. You don't have a choice at this point. And so Reiner sat down and listened. And the way that she says it right here, I sat and listened to my mom get eaten. And that ties to Reiner and Eren in Declaration of War, because Reiner sat there and listened to Eren admit that I'm about to cause this attack because I have no choice. And you're going to sit here and watch me do it. And it's like, it's just, oh my God. Right? And we go back to that house, the bed, everything. It's so grisly. She was alive the whole time it happened. And eventually she went silent. And they're like, I think she screamed until she lost her voice. I wondered back in season 2 why the mom was quiet. And at the time, back in season 2, I thought that it was because the mom didn't want to scream because she didn't want Kea to feel like she was in pain. So she was being quiet to help save her. But now that we know what really happened, that the mom screamed until she lost her voice and then couldn't scream anymore. And the Titan was a tiny one. The Connie's dad was a tiny Titan, so it could barely eat on her. It just ate on her while she was alive. Grisly. And Gabi and Falco are horrified. They say humanity outside the walls thinks that we're devils. And Kea's like, I don't understand why we're hated so much. She doesn't get it. She's like, Mia, Ben, tell me, what exactly did my mom do? Why did she have to die? And that ties back to Gabi's whole thing. She wants to know why Udo and Sophia had to die. What did they do? Why did they have to die? And but again, you can argue that Sophia and Udo maybe committed war crimes. whereas Kea's mom did nothing. She was oblivious, so you can't argue that. Absolutely. But she's like, what did she do to be hated so much? And Gabi goes back to what she's been taught since day one. She's like, your kind slaughtered people for thousands of years. And it's so sad that she says that. She says, you're kind. And I'm like, Gabi, they're your kind too. You're an Eldian too, just like Kea. You've just been indoctrinated to think that you're different, but you're not. That's the thing. That goes back to the armband. The armband makes her a Marley and Eldian. It makes her different, supposedly, than the rest of the Eldians. But in reality, she's not. She's not any different. And Falco's just like, ah. And then Kea's like, thousands. And then she says, don't tell me you forgot it. Because Gabi thinks that they've learned the same history, but they haven't. Kea doesn't know that history at all. They don't know at all what's been going on. Eldians use the power of the Titans to trample and rule the world for millennia. But honey, you're wanting to gain the power of the Titans to do the same. So, This is where it gets complicated, right? Like, everything she's saying is just regurgitated what's been forced down her throat, right? And into her brain. She's like, they wiped out other cultures and they forced them to bear their children and murdered endless droves of people. And that's what the Marleyans have told her since day one, and said, stop playing the victim. That's what the Marleyans have told Gabi and her family and everyone. They're like, you don't have the right to be victims. Look what you did to us. You don't get to be victims. No. But only now they've taught Gabi and them that, and they've taught them that that mentality is what they should put on other people. So it's like, not only are they saying that Gabi and Falco are in that boat, but they should believe others are in that boat even more. And Kaya's just like, well, my mom was born and raised here. She never did anything like that. She's like, no. And so that Gabi's like tries to grab another straw. Gabi's like, but a century ago, the sins of your ancestors were terrible and great. Like a century ago. Like we've shortened the time gap from thousands of years to a century ago, right? But then Kaya responds to that as well. Kaya's like, a century ago, what about the people who live now? How have we sinned? How are we the same as those people from a century ago? And Gabi's like, well, not long ago, you guys trampled my home. So she's like, and now it closes the gap. She's like, well, but just recently you all attacked the internment zone. So that's how, right? And she goes, my mom was killed 4 years ago. It's not her fault. Like, she just shoves it back in Gabi's face. And Gabi's like, I'm telling you, your ancestors killed people all over the place. And she's like, my mother killed no one. And when she grabs Gabi's shoulder, she's like, answer me, Mia. Why did my mom have to suffer like that for doing nothing? Why did she have to die? There has to be a reason. It's crazy if there's no reason. My mother was eaten alive. Why was she killed? And Gabi has no answer. And God, Kaya just shoving it back in her face. Kaya just being like, you have to tell me. And Gabi is like realizing in this moment, like, everything they've been doing is kind of a lie. It's all, they've been fighting Paradis under this assumption that doesn't exist. Like, she thinks that Paradis was taught the same history that they were taught, that we were taught that Paradis the bad guy, so Paradis must have been taught that we were the bad guys. And that's not the case. And it's getting shoved back in Gabi's face, and Gabi just doesn't have a response. And so Falco breaks the tension by saying it was recon in force. Saying the invasion of Paradis 4 years ago was staging for a larger attack. And then Kaya, she says, you and your mother were caught up in that. And we're just victims. Your mom didn't do anything wrong. I'm sorry. Yeah. And so, God. And the axe is still there above the door. I love it. But yeah, so Falco's saying, I'm sorry. Like, just saying, you guys were caught up in this. And you didn't have any right to be. And I love that she just goes up against the wall and she sits. She sits and she listened, right? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Gabi's like, well, you're leaking secrets to the enemy, so why do you apologize? And Falco's like, shut up! I just saved your, from you getting punched by this girl. And in the moment, you can see that Kaya's face is red, like she's been crying or angry. She says, thanks for letting me know, Ben. But it's weird for you to apologize for Marley. You were just born there. God, that line. God, that line in their faces. She's like, you don't have to apologize to Marley. You can't help that you... She's saying the same thing that they just told her, right? Only the thing is, there is a difference. Kaya tells Gabi and Falco, she's like, you just told me that my mom and I did nothing wrong. We were just caught up in the middle of this war that we had no part of, and we were just victims of circumstance. And she's like, I don't know why you're apologizing. Aren't you guys in the same boat as us? But that look on Gabi and Falco's face, it's guilt, because they are involved. They're part of the crew that attacked them, and they know it. That part is what gets me, is that they now realize that they're part of the cycle. They're part of the problem. They don't have any rights to claim themselves as victims because they're the ones attacking people like Kaya and her mom that are victims. It's it's heavy. And then so she asks, then Falco says, well, how did you manage to escape and survive? And that's when Kaya steps in the light and says, a girl a bit older than I am now grabbed a hatchet and started hitting a Titan. And they're both amazed. They're like, really? Someone was that stupid or brave or both? Yeah, that's crazy. What? And you see the hatchet. Yeah, she pulled herself between me and the Titan and allowed me to escape. And that line, and allowed me to escape, I feel like that's an original line. I feel like that's what Isayama originally intended. That's how he wrote it in the script. And whether or not Sasha actually lived after that moment doesn't matter. It's the allowed me to escape. Because she doesn't say in the moment that we escaped together. She just said she pulled herself between me and the Titan and allowed me to escape. I feel like that was always intended. Yep. And if she was alive, she wouldn't abandon people like you with nowhere to go. Again, that could have been back in season 2. If Sasha had died in season 2, the end result is the same, right? If she's alive, she wouldn't abandon people like you with nowhere to go. God, that's hard because it ties to Sasha not killing Gabi. Yep. It's crazy. Just like she didn't abandon me. And so here's the thing. We were invited to a restaurant Marley is working at, which is Niccolo. And so she says, if you come along, you might find a way to go back home. So she does know that they're there. Yep. And then Gabby's like, why are you helping us? She says, I want to become a person like her. So again, you have Kaya and you have Louise. Kaya wants to become like Sasha and become somebody that would help someone no matter what. And Louise wants to become like Mikasa, someone who has the power to protect the people they care about. So it's interesting. You have Kaya and Louise as two of our center focuses in this episode. It's interesting. So then we have the end credit scene. Why not? And we cut to the aftermath of the battle, and you have the spire, the beautiful spire of the Warhammer Titan in this like monstrous closet, which some of you have said that the exoskeleton when it came out to try to get Eren looks like the tree that we see in the ED. It does. Intentional, I'm sure. Investigating the Beast Titan's corpse, we found pieces of Zeke blown apart. And it shows them pulling the kid out of the rubble. And of course, there's the parents looking at the kid and he's dead. Yep. But the Beast Titan, it was just his arms and legs missing. That's all they found, of course, because that's all Levi cut off. So he pretended he was dead in order to deceive us. Yep. And all of them were looking over like not happy about this news. We believe Zeke has sided with Paradis and escaped on the airship. And they're both like, why? This modified anti-personnel ODM gear utilizes Marley and technology. So Hizuru and the others. So there's been help. Yep. There's also an airship they stole. Yep. Elena and all them. It executed advanced maneuvers only a trained pilot could perform. Zeke probably sneaked comrades aboard the scout fleet 4 years ago to go and infiltrate. Yep. Eldian restorationists, that is. So we believe that the brave volunteers are the faction of the restorationists, which again, with Zeke, the hell? You sold your dad out, who was a restorationist, and then you become one supposedly as well. Why? I feel like I'm going to be asking that question with Zeke the rest of the season. I don't want to be spoiled, obviously, but Zeke, he confuses me to no end. I'm just like, okay. Sure. And then Porco's just like, to think that we fought side by side with a traitor this whole time. Yep, you did. And we cut over to Peak, and Peak's just like, like contemplating, right? It's interesting. But yeah, Porco's messed up about it. And Reiner's like, well, shoe's now on the other foot because Bertolt and Annie and I fought side by side with the Survey Corps, and we were the traitors the whole time. So now the shoe's on the other foot. What about that, right? Because he's oddly silent. We won't let him off the hook. Well, no. I feel like Magath's like, as soon as we get him back, we're going to feed him to Colt. Within 6 months, a global alliance will launch an offensive on Paradis. And again, we said Zeke only has a year left, so they're going to wait half a year to launch their assault, and then assume that within those 6 months Zeke has left on Earth, they're going to get him back and feed him to Colt. Okay. We're waiting for 6 months to rescue Gabi and Falco. What? Colt's like, no, we can't wait that long. And he uses the excuse saying that they're talented warrior candidates. Porco says that too. Porco's like, it'll be a huge blow to Marley if we lose them. And then Peak speaks up and says, training a new warrior candidate will take ages, longer than the 6 months. And Magath's like, look, if Marley attacks alone, we've tried this twice before. It didn't work. And that's when Reiner speaks up. He's like, we can't wait for this global alliance. Zeke is hoping we're going to wait. That's what Zeke wants. He thinks Marley won't attack after taking such heavy damage. So if we wait half a year to get there, he'll have made plans to fight back, which is not wrong. Zeke is smart. He will have made plans. Yes. We can't wait for the global alliance. And I like that it's Colt and Reiner that stand up, because they're the two that are most invested in this mission, because it's to get Gabi and Falco back. So of course they're the ones that stand up. We have to launch a surprise attack at once. Okay. And Peak and Colt's like, yep, let's do it. Peak's like, can't say I disagree. And Porco's like, I want revenge. I want to, prove myself. Magath's just like, here we go again. And then there's Reiner. Oh my God. So the question though is, yes, from the outset, it would appear as if Zeke's banking on them having this global alliance, and Zeke is banking on them biding their time until they regroup and then attack. And he's going to think of a plan between now and then. But I don't know. Zeke's really smart. So Zeke, I assume, may also have thought of the fact that Reiner and them would try to stage a surprise attack. So that's curious. I'm curious to know if Zeke expected the surprise attack from Reiner and them, or because he didn't intend on Gabi and Falco originally being, he said Gabi and Falco were miscalculations. He did not intend on Gabi and Falco being, he may not expect the surprise attack because he didn't bank on Gabi and Falco being part of the mission coming back to Paradis. That's the thing. So Zeke may not expect a surprise attack, because if Gabi and Falco, we're under the understanding that originally Gabi and Falco were not supposed to be on the airship with them going back to Paradis. So Gabi and Falco being on Paradis is really the incentive for them going over there. Yeah, they use the excuse with Magath saying that they can't afford to wait 6 months because Zeke is banking on that. But underlying it all is the fact of the matter that they really are just wanting to rescue Gabi and Falco. Because Peak makes a comment about it taking a long time to make new recruits. And so if Gabi and Falco were still there, I think Peak would have sided with Magath and said, no, we have Gabi and Falco. We don't need to go after Zeke yet. We can wait until the alliance. We've got our warrior candidates. We don't need to be hasty. But because they don't have the warrior candidates, that's making Peak kind of not be able to argue the fact that, they need to go over there. The question is, how far has Zeke planned ahead, and does Zeke anticipate the surprise attack? That's the big question. Did Zeke anticipate that? That's what's curious, because he's over there reading while Levi's watching him. So there's that. Whew, buddy. So apparently Gabi and Falco are getting taken by Kea to Niccolo, who last episode was kind of shady. So nothing will come of that. Nothing will come of that. And, but Niccolo knows that a warrior candidate killed Sasha. He knows that they told him in episode 9 that a trained kid killed Sasha, who we think he loved, and he knew it was a warrior candidate. So if Kea could be leading Gabi and Falco, what if Niccolo shoots Gabi? What if he tries to? It'd be ironic if an actual Marleyan tried to kill Gabi and Falco and not the Eldian Devils. It was a Marleyan that tried to kill them. Oh. I don't know how to feel, because there's part of me that thinks that Gabi has death flags. There's part of me that thinks that I don't feel like Falco has death flags, because he's too tied to the themes of this series. Falco is tied to the whole theories about freedom and the theories about justice and the theory about communication and understanding. Like, Falco is so intricately tied to those that I'm like, I don't feel like Falco's going to die in this series. I could be wrong. I don't feel like he is. But Gabi, I feel like she could die. I feel like Gabi could die and Colt could die. And that will leave Reiner and Falco in a very precarious condition situation where they have lost two of the people closest to them. Like Colt has death flags. I'm just saying it. Colt has death flags. I don't think Isayama's killing off Reiner. He's one of his favorite characters. I don't think he's killing off Reiner yet. I think Reiner's endgame. He's making it till the end. He's going to die by Eren Yeager's hands or something. I don't think Reiner's dying anytime soon. But Colt, if he goes on this mission, Colt's death could be a trigger for Falco to act in a certain way, and Gabi's death could be a trigger for Reiner. So, I don't know, but that's just where my headspace is. I'm like, I could see Gabi dying, and I could see Colt dying. And if Gabi and Colt die, those are the two people closest to Falco, and that could destroy him. So I've been really happy with Falco's headspace and where he is, and despite all of this, like he's being very open-minded. But my fear is that if Gabi and Colt die, then it could turn Falco against Eren and the others, and it could corrupt him. I'm like, I don't want you to get corrupted, buddy, but I don't know. So yeah. I've talked for 2 hours. Surprising no one, but man, okay, well, Deceiver. Lots of deceivers in this episode. You know who else is also a deceiver? Hange. Hange is a deceiver in all this somehow because she's trying to keep her wits about her. She's trying to find the truth, but she's having to lie and say things to do so that she's like, damn it, I'm no different than Sanus. So there's Hannes, there is Kea, there's Louise, there are deceivers and all this. It's interesting. I think you can make arguments for Gabi, and you can make arguments for lots of characters being deceivers in this episode, but very, very interesting. So this episode was not what I expected. After seeing episodes 9 and 10 and them being just bonkers and lots of exposition, this feels like a setup episode for episode 12. It feels like a setup episode. And we've got the Gears of Motion with the Warrior crew, what they're doing. It's interesting. I'm very curious to know what's going to end up happening with our group. So, and then we haven't seen Eren at all this episode. Funny that. Or Zeke. Or Levi. So we'll just see what happens next episode, right? I hope you all have enjoyed this reaction. Like I said in prior reactions, at this point, I'm going to stay as neutral as possible and just do it one episode at a time, because I feel like with this season, that's all I can do. And then start thinking about the recap. Should be fun times. But in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Attack on Titan Season 4. Bye.